Hi everybody. Sorry it's been a while. I did do a video a couple weeks ago, and then as I was editing, something happened with the microphone and the audio, and it didn't work. So I'm back again. It's been a busy couple weeks. So I'm going to go ahead and give you a little quick tour around the yard. It's looking absolutely lovely. It's my favorite time of the year, especially for the backyard. But you can probably hear all the birds singing in the background. I've got a wren. I've got some Tennessee warblers. Goodness knows who else. So let's see what we can get into. It's a little bit in the late afternoon. The sun's finally come out, so the light's gorgeous back here. And we'll just do a little tour around the yard. I'll get you caught up in what I've been doing. So good to have you here. And if you're new, my name is Eileen, and this is Through the Garden Gate. We're going to start with a quick little pan around the yard real quick, and then we'll get up close. It's changed quite a bit since the last video. Very green. We had some really wet periods this spring. We've had some really dry periods, and we just got a good rain the last couple of days. We've had a couple storms. So let's start over here. This is my bergamot coming up nicely, and then there's some volunteer columbines in here, which just love to death. So beautiful. It's a volunteer shorts aster. I had a lot of those. I did a lot of cleaning out of the garden. Don't mind the trash that's blown off the deck. This little corner here, some more bergamot. I think I put those in. This is a early sunflower. I think it's called Helianthus helianthoides is the scientific name. There's some black-eyed purple coneflowers in here. Got some butterfly milkweed popping up. In the last video, the Joe Pye weed back there was infested with some kind of nasty weed that I got out, and hopefully it looks like it stayed out. There's some bare patches in here right now. I'm going to try and fill them in with a few things, maybe dig things up from around the yard and transplant. This yellow coneflower has spread quite beautifully, and there's a lot of just volunteer stuff in here. There's some volunteer purple coneflower, some volunteer spiderwort. As we move over to this area, the violets are done blooming, and the leaves are just really popping up. There's a few little dwarf crested iris that are still left in here. They were really at their peak a couple of weeks ago. Just stunning. It's a really cute little plant. There's a little patch, that's prairie drop seed right there. This garden doesn't get much more than 5 hours of sun a day, but it does pretty good. And then here, these are my New England asters. And we're coming up on Memorial Day weekend. And so one of the jobs I'll do then is I'll cut those back by half. So there's a clump here. There's a clump here. And right there. And what I do is I cut them back by half. And then around 4th of July, I trim them back by about another quarter or so. And it makes them more rounded, gives me more blooms. And then back here is all the May apples. You can see they're starting to get little spots on them, starting to fade. They're getting towards the end of their little natural life cycle for this season. And one of my favorites, this is a volunteer Jack in the Pulpit. Oh no, sorry, I gotta not squish the plants. Super fun little native plant. That's Jack. Keeps wanting to focus on my hand instead of the flower. And when that'll be some flowers popping out on that stalk, and then they'll get pollinated, and then there'll be a big cluster of red berries in the fall. And my other favorite part of the garden is this little corner with the columbine. Just love the way the afternoon sun hits that. And I've got a little fountain back here. I gotta check into it. It doesn't seem to be working, but I don't know that it's a solar powered fountain. Right out the driveway, I'll give you a little, well, we'll do the driveway part later. In this corner, I had a lot of Schwartz aster that had self-seeded here, and I didn't want it here, so I took a lot of that out. I find I was left with some bare patches. So I transplanted some sedges, the Carex blanda, and then I added some hairy beard tongue. This is the gentian that'll bloom in the fall. The beard tongue, these plants should maybe produce a flower this year. There's another gentian. This is another New England aster over here. And I'll do the same thing. I'll cut it back by half in next week. And then back there along the back row, I alternated black-eyed Susans and purple coneflowers, but I think the purple coneflowers are getting kind of dominated out by some other things. That clump right there is Culver's root. So a lot of things right now just in this area of the yard haven't burst into color yet, but in a few weeks this will be the real showy part of the garden, and I'll show you the part that's been showy so far. But this is another one of my favorites, blue-eyed grass, and they're kind of fading, but they tend to be more open in the morning. Sorry, couldn't get out here before work today. Another hairy beard tongue right here. You can see, I think the scientific name, is this the tag? Scientific name, Penstemon hirsutus. And I think that hirsutus has to do with the hairy stems you see there. So that's that little friend. Some more butterfly milkweed there coming up. Purple coneflower coming up. And then they saw these were just starting to get ready to bloom yesterday. And while I was at work today, this is the Amsonia Blue Star. And there's Earl, for those of you who are new. Earl's my gardening buddy, but I just love this Amsonia. It's not exactly native to my county, it's native to my state, but I love it. My irises, they'll bloom a little bit later. I've got more irises in front that I'll show you. The pond does need a good cleaning. There's a lot of debris that blew in with some of our storms, so I'm gonna maybe put that on the list for this weekend too. And then here are the wild hyacinth, just stunning this afternoon. Look at those, they're gorgeous. It's cooling off. We've been in the 80s the last couple days. So my pollinators, as we get to this time of the day when the sun's not hitting this part of the garden, they're not as active over here. And it's been very windy today. But there's some, get a good look at them. A volunteer purple coneflower, I'm going to let it stay here. A gentian. There's the wild bee balm. And then this getting ready to bloom here. These clumps of grass-like looking things are the spiderwort. Another gentian in the back. And then tucked up against the compost bin, there's some Joe Pye weed. I've got a few more prairie dropseed plants here. So lots of fun stuff. A lot of things will volunteer in the yard. And look at this. This is killing me. Right next to the compost bin. That wild ginger, those leaves are huge. They're almost as big as a dinner plate. Oh, here comes the sun. I won't sing for you. Some more columbine. The hummingbirds will feed on that. And then the Joe Pye weed. Beautiful stand of wild geranium. This stuff self-seeds around my yard like crazy, and I've just decided I'm going to let it go where it thinks it wants to be. And this is the True Solomon seal. Try and pop the scientific name in. You can see the buds are just starting to come out. I've got a couple different Solomon seals in the yard that I'll show you. Here are the Jacob's Ladder. They're finishing up. They started blooming at the end of April. But these leaves will persist, and they'll get a little bit more poofy and mound shaped as the summer goes on. The celandine poppy that started very early on in April is getting towards the end. There's the seed pod. And those seed pods will burst. You can almost see the little seam there. And they'll kind of expel their seeds everywhere. Gosh, lots of good stuff back here. More May apples, geranium. Up against the garage there, some black cohosh. That'll be blooming a little bit later this summer. Nobody seems to have taken up residence in this house. Some years the chickadees do. And then one of my other just favorites is the false Solomon seal or Solomon's plume. I just love those leaves. And then those clusters there, those are the buds. Those are going to be big white flower, or not big, but they'll be white flowers soon. I put in a few plants here, and they're duking it out with the celandine poppy and the wild geranium. Maple leaf viburnum is right here, getting ready to bloom. Some more Joe Pyeweed and some ferns in the background. This is obviously pretty shady. Gets a couple hours of sun a day, and then this is where I've extended the garden. This isn't looking too spectacular just yet, but I've been purchasing a few plants and then digging up and transplanting others. So some of the plants I purchased is some Jacob's ladder. So I put in a couple here. I think I put in 3. There's number 2, and number 3 is back there. And then some columbine that I found self-seeded and growing around various parts of the yard. I dug up some clumps and transplanted them back here a couple weeks ago. And you can see some of them are blooming, which is fantastic. And then there's some volunteer bluebells. My actual bluebells have faded. They're done. They're a little, oops, I just tripped. I need to watch where I'm walking. Their little strategy here, you can see the stalks where the blooms are done, and they fall over towards the ground, so they'll drop their seeds right here in the dirt, and I'll get more bluebells. And here's some tall bellflower, Campanula americana. They're a biennial, so I probably won't get a flower this year, but next year I will. One of my ferns, and then these May apples here. What I'm going to do in another, probably this weekend is going to be my big gardening weekend, is I'm going to come pop off the tops of the leaves here so that the wild ginger that's been very patiently hiding below can get a little sun. And then this is a lovely patch of the blue or black cohosh, and it'll send up these spikes with just beautiful flowers. The Virginia waterleaf is starting to bloom now. I'll show you that in just a second. Again, so I usually at the end of the year I go around, and when I collect some of the berries and stuff from the Solomon seal, I just walk around and kind of squish them into the soil in various places of the yard, and it seems to work. They've been starting to fill in a bit. Oh my goodness. The rains we recently had really perked up this garden. I do need to get out here and do a little work. As you can see, it's growing over into the path, but the tall thing is a maple leaf viburnum. There's some columbines and maidenhair ferns. I keep promising a more up close tour of this garden. I'll get to it. I promise. And then my red bud is all done blooming. See a few scraggly little dead blooms left, but we'll have seed pods on there. Oh my goodness, the rain we just recently had just really exploded things. So we've got some phlox in here, some phlox divaricata, and just enormous jack-in-the-pulpits. Just enormous. They're so cool. This one here has just started blooming the last few days. This is Sweet Sicily. Tiny little white flowers. But here are the flowers of the Virginia waterleaf. When they first come up in the spring, the leaves have these really cool sort of little, look like water droplets on their leaves. And then as they mature, that coloration fades, and now they're blooming. Now they do get kind of aggressive, and they can be a great ground cover if that's what you want to use them for, but I like to have a little more diversity, so I'm going to have to knock them back a little bit to keep everybody under control. Here's one of my volunteer shorts asters. I don't know if we'll keep him here. Oof. Oh, there's a bumblebee. Hello. So I did notice, is that one of them? That might be one of them. I'm noticing the worker bees now. So that means our queens that came out of hibernation a few weeks ago, about a month or so ago, have established a colony and have done enough to, have some workers out and about. The wren is nesting in here, so we're not going to stay around here too much longer. But some other things back in here towards the back of the fence, there's more black cohosh, there's some ferns, mayaples. I've got some Joe Pye weed in there, lots of Virginia waterleaf. I've transplanted in some columbine to add a little bit more back. Here's the third Solomon seal species. This is called starry Solomon seal, and it's pretty much done blooming at this point. So they get a little bit of white at the tip here as well. Their leaves are a little bit more pointed, not quite as wide, and it's not a very big clump of flowers. But I just love the way they have filled in this area. There's a little baby oak tree that we're going to leave for when big grandpa oak tree or grandma oak tree is no longer with us. We want to have another one here to take its place. And then this area is another new expansion of the garden. So the ferns I dug up from different places in the yard. Same with the Solomon seal. This is Canada anemone, and it's a great ground cover, but it kind of takes over, so I try to knock that back a little bit so it doesn't take over everywhere. Some more hairy beard tongue, or the Penstemon hirsutus. Some more Jacob's ladder, and my goal here is to kind of fill this in along the border. There's some golden star sedge, some more Jacob's ladder, columbine. I put in some bare roots of the Solomon's plume, the first or second Solomon seal, the false Solomon seal or Solomon's plume. And then there's the true Solomon seal right back here. These I transplanted from somewhere else in the yard where I have a lot. And then this is the bellwort. And the dog and probably the fox and various other critters keep stepping on it, but this one seems to be perking up a little bit. Just a lovely. It's done blooming now. And here and there I've popped in a few clumps of the tall bellflower. I've got some bare roots of the white trillium in here. This area is far more established, and there's quite a mix. It's very naturalized at this point, which I love. I just try to keep things like the Virginia waterleaf or the Canada anemone from taking over too much. Some more of that sweet Cicely I showed you earlier. And our little bumblebee friend is right over here. Yeah, look at those pollen baskets. Good little worker bee. There's still some flocks in there. Lots of bumblebees moving around. Now over here, I've got a patch of one of the Joe Pye weeds that's a little more shade tolerant, and it looks like I've got some Solomon seal growing up right among it. You can see definitely the path that Earl makes through the garden. So it's a little hard for me to keep plants in certain areas because he just does his perimeter check all the time. And if he's chasing some critter like a squirrel or a chipmunk, well, not so great for the plants. And this guy right here is my musclewood. It's coming in nicely. Another maple leaf viburnum back here. Doing well. Some volunteer columbine. And then these are some sweet black-eyed Susans that I had in a different part of the yard. And they got to be 6 feet tall, and it was just way too tall for that area. So I just dug them out and plopped them back here, and they just took root, and they're doing great. So I get some nice color in this back corner in the summer. Again, more giant jack-in-the-pulpits, little spice bush, and then this is my new thing. These are I think I might have breezed by the other one. The mosquito bucket challenge. I'll put a link in the description about it. So the idea is you fill a bucket with water, and I just dug up, or not dug, but I grabbed up a bunch of dead leaves and sticks and some fresh grass clippings, and it gets a little gross, and that attracts the female mosquitoes. She'll lay her eggs in there, and then you put those mosquito dunks, which is a naturally occurring bacteria that feeds on the larva of the mosquito. So the idea being remove all other water sources and she'll go there to lay her eggs. And so you concentrate it and then you get rid of them. I'll let you know how it goes. I actually am due to replace the, the water and the dunk this weekend. So maybe I'll try and get that on film. Did want to show you, this is a non-native invasive plant called buckthorn. My neighbor has a tree. It's a female tree, produces lots of berries. So I'm trying to see if I can get that taken down before the berries form this fall. But the birds eat the berries, has a natural laxative effect. And they, sit up on the power lines above right where I'm at right now, and they poop out the seeds. And so these, when they're at this stage, are really easy. I just go around and hand pull them. But I'll put in a picture of what this looked like, this area looked like a couple days ago, because it was really at its peak. Okay, with the golden star sedge. Sorry, I'm making sure I don't trip over anything as I walk backwards. And then we had the phlox in front, and the wild geranium, and then the pagoda dogwood, which is just beautiful. Let me zoom in on that so you can see the flowers. I've been waiting for this. I've had this tree for a couple of years, and this is the first year it's flowering. I love it. Isn't that beautiful? They have such beautiful leaves, and the flowers are gorgeous. Now the wild geranium, again, they've taken over this area a little bit. So I do need to grub a few of them out just to give some other things that are blooming in the summer a chance. Like, I used to have a whole stand of bee balm in here, and the geranium have just, I've got a little bit right there in front, but the geranium have really done a number on them. And here is our third expansion plot. Right in here, I dug out some of that Virginia waterleaf and put it over here. I've dug out a few clumps of the Carex blanda again, the common wood sedge. We've got a few columbines in here that I bought, some wild geraniums. What else? This is downy wood mint. It's doing really well. So I've got a lot of space to fill in here. Not quite sure what I'm going to pop in there, but I don't want to leave it blank because it'll just invite weeds. Some more Amsonia over here in this border, and that's in front of a serviceberry right there. Serviceberry's been here for a couple years too, and they haven't started blooming yet. I'm still waiting on the bloom of the serviceberry. But there's some more of that blue star. And another clump of wild hyacinths right there. This is a black haw viburnum. They've already bloomed. I don't know if they're starting berries yet. You can tell that the flowers have faded a bit. But I don't see, oh yeah, there's some little berries starting. So we had some good pollination. And then there's a native shade grass right here called bottle brush grass that I've got in here, and it self-seeds pretty regularly. And if it gets a little too much of a bully, I can just kind of grub them out. I do have a volunteer oak that can't stay here because it would be right underneath these power lines, which is not good. So I'll have to, maybe I'll try and dig that one up and transplant it before it gets too far established. And this makes me happy with the rain we just had. This is my button bush. And I think it started to leaf out, and we got a couple of really good frosts. And I was a little worried, but it looks like we do have some good leaves. Oh, and the Baptisia is blooming. I don't even remember putting it here, but I must have dug out a seedling at some point and just popped it back here. The Baptisia australis. And it looks like it's doing pretty good. Oh, there's some nasty vine back here that I need to deal with. What are you? You're messing with my black haw viburnum. Sorry. Shouldn't try and pull weeds at the same time I'm doing a video tour. All right, so let's go back out here. We've got 3 big clumps of Joe Pye weed here that by the end of the summer, they will be taller, or as tall, if not a little taller than the fence, which is really nice because then it kind of covers up the fence. Geranium is creeping its way out into this part of the garden. We'll keep an eye on that. I'm very happy to see this clump of bee balm. There's another clump of columbine, Culver's root, the eastern star or golden star sedge here. Again, a holdover from when I had pines here, and it was a little shadier. That's some kind of sedge back there. I'm not sure. I don't think I planted it. But I tend to let things, for the most part, just self-seed where they want to be. Here's, this little area is mostly, once it gets all filled in, this purple prairie clover. And what I'm trying to get in here is some butterfly milkweed. Because I think that purple and orange goes well really nicely together. And another very exciting thing is our 9-bark is getting ready to flower. So that's lovely. Another few days that should be blooming. A damselfly. There's probably no way I'll get that on camera, but we'll try. Land, my friend. There it is. There it is. That's the first one I've seen this year. I'm not great at my damselfly species, but I'll look it up and see if I can't find out what it is. Oh, it's so windy. Sorry. All right. Come around to this side. Oh, the sun has gone behind a cloud, but look at that. Isn't that lovely? I just love the columbine. And then I've got a whole sea of Penn sedge, Pennsylvania sedge. This surrounding the bird bath is a whole bunch of bee balm. The spice bush is done flowering and is almost completely leafed out. And in the video where I had no sound, or a little bit of sound, I was tying down the clematis on the arbor here. And it looks like it's grown at least a foot since I did that, if not more. So I need to tie it down again. And then there's a 9-bark here. And that one is also getting ready to bloom. Some ferns and Solomon seal. Just a really fun way that the garden is starting to naturalize from where I put everything. And the last thing I want to show you before we do a quick tour of the side and front yard is in the last few weeks, I've also taken the stuff that I was winter sowing. And I've done some videos on that where I just put the seeds out in a big tub over the winter and they germinated. And then I kind of separated them out into their own little flats. And it's gone quite nicely. So this flat right here is a plant called Royal Catchfly. And then I found some self-seeded bergamot in some of my pots around the deck. So I dug those out. This is all butterfly milkweed. Some more bergamot. And then over here, this tray is either blue lobelia or cardinal flower. Same here, or a combination of both. I did something really not too bright, which is I put the seeds next to each other in the big tub. And so when they germinated, they look very similar. And they also look like maybe at some point a lot of water got in there and moved the seeds around. So anyway, well, it'll be a surprise. And then this is some more Royal Catchfly. And last but not least, some tall bellflower, which is one of my favorites. I showed you some in the yard already. Looks like I need to give them a little drink. Again, we've been really windy. And then the last thing I want to show you are the tomatoes and peppers that got a little beat up by the wind today. We grew the tomatoes and peppers and these herbs over here in the red cups from seed. And the tomatoes and peppers and that rosemary there have been out and they're perfectly ready to go in the garden. It's just I haven't had time. And then tonight temperatures are going to drop and they're going to stay low. And so I probably am just going to wait. I have to get some tomato support system set up and everything anyway. So I think I'm going to wait to the weekend. Because the other thing I did is I blew out my back one day over ambitiously doing yard work. And so I've been kind of laying low for a few days trying to get it healed up. It's been busy at work and I've been on my feet a lot, so it's really taken a toll. But anyway, feeling better this week. All right, well, that's it for the backyard. You can see how when the sun goes behind a cloud, it definitely changes the look. And we'll go ahead and start working on the side and front yard. All right, I did want to show you this poor disastrous little batch of tomato plants here. I'll pop in a picture. I did end up giving away most of my tomato plants, and these are what are left. Looks like they need to be watered, even though we got some rain. All right, as we go down the driveway, we've got some volunteer spiderwort that's grown into quite the lovely clump. Volunteer columbine, again, quite the lovely clump. And then more spiderwort. These are some grasses that I'm going to be getting rid of. In the meantime, I've been just mowing them very short every week when I mow, trying to knock them back a little bit. I just have to get some tarps out here. I'm trying to decide what I want to do differently out here. So this is mostly just all volunteer spiderwort. And then the blue baptisia here, this gets full sun. So this one starts blooming the earliest. Aren't they gorgeous? Bumblebees aren't quite as active right now. And this is the other clump. Don't mind the garden glove here that was up here over the winter so that nobody bonked into the little plant support that was sticking out. The New Jersey tea, I had to, forgive the weeds again. I haven't been able to work in the garden very much, but there's a New Jersey tea that I put in last year. And then these are more established. But this one here, this second one in, it's not doing great. It's got one little stem that's got some leaves on it, so I'm not sure. I may just cut back all the dead stuff and see if it'll come back. But everybody else seems to be doing okay. Let's take a look at the vegetable garden. This past weekend, I had little bit of time before graduation, and I was able to go in and thin out the carrot patch, which I find to be the most zen experience. Maybe not everybody does. What it basically did is I got rid of the carrots that were growing too closely to each other, and I tried to give them a couple inches between each carrot so that they have some room to grow. And I can see I didn't exactly do the best job. As you can see here, these two are kind of close to each other. So if they're really close, I'll get a pair of scissors, but sometimes I can just snip off the leaves. I try not to disturb the soil too much. The other thing I did, and I think I got to come back in and do it again, is I trimmed some of the onion leaves, the outer onion leaves, so that they don't break. And I've had an issue with critters walking through the beds, but I think I'm just going to let it be at this point and not try to cover it up. This bed here is supposed to be beans, but as you can see, I did not harvest all the potatoes. I guess I didn't find all the potatoes last year. I'm having a heck of a time with whatever this grass is. So I've got to spend some time this weekend trying to get it under control. I might throw some cardboard on top or and then throw a bunch more wood chips on to keep it at bay. Peas are doing great. I'm telling you, as much as I was trying to hand water while we were in those dry spells, nothing like a good rain. The lettuce, look at this lettuce. We've been eating lettuce every day, at least twice a day, and I love it. It's so beautiful. And the peas are obeying a few of my commands and moving their way up the trellis. Oh, yay! This bed has potatoes in it, and it's the last to show evidence. But there they go. They're finally starting to come up. So here's another bed with potatoes in it. Here's the herbs. So this is thyme. Oh my goodness, it's already starting to flower. So are the chives. And then I bought an organic rosemary plant, and I've been growing sage. So I'll put those out. And lots of squirrels buried acorns. And I'll try to dig those out. Maybe pot them on up and see if I can't give away some oaks. Lots of weeds in here. Usually once a year I come in and get rid of all the weeds and throw an extra layer of wood chips down, and that usually keeps it under control for the growing season. Some more potatoes here. I don't have anything in these other beds right over here just yet. Oh, I do actually. So I've been adding some grass clippings to some of them. This is going to be a bean bed. There's some spiderwort. The spiderwort is blooming, but it closes up at night, so I can't show you what the blooms look like, but I'll pop a picture in. And we've got a bird bath here that I have to clean. But here's some more onions around the border of this bed, and this spiderwort really loves it here. And then I'm going to put pepper plants in the middle. So I'm going to plant. Well, hello friends, it happened again. I'm not quite sure what's happening with my microphone, but I think I'm going to stop using it for a little while. In the meantime, I'll try and just tell you a little bit about what was going on in the video here. So I'm just giving you a little tour of some of the plants I bought at a native plant sale over the last weekend. And then we get into another set of peas and lettuce and leeks here. Everything's doing really well in the front garden. We've been eating a lot of the lettuce. I'm showing you how I kind of cut it back. Don't completely pull it out of the ground, but we cut it just above the surface and then it'll grow back. So hopefully I'll have some lettuce if we don't get too terribly hot. And here I'm trying to train the peas to go up the trellis. And our leeks are doing well. Those will be ready to harvest much later in the summer. And we're heading on over to the broccoli, which has exploded recently. Doing really, really well there as too. And I'm hoping that we'll have some broccoli to harvest not too far into the month of June. Once the broccoli's done, I'll take that out and I'll have to consult the garden plan. But I think I've got a plan to put in beans to help, get some nitrogen back into the soil naturally. But so far, no caterpillar damage there as well. And where do we go from here? Looks like we're going to head on over to the little garden underneath the oak tree up front, where we've got lots of volunteers like the Columbine. There's the prairie smoke. I think we're going to take an up close look at the prairie smoke. And that's what it looks like when it's in full seed. There's one of the Canada anemones that I talked about in the backyard tour. They really do take over. I think I had them in the front garden there under the oak tree at one point, and somehow they're moving all over the yard. But quite a bit of diversity. I'm trying to encourage things like the purple cone flowers and the black-eyed Susans to crowd out that anemone. And as we move over here, we've got, I'm not quite sure what we're talking about here. I can't remember. Probably showing you where some of them, yeah, we had a little graduate this weekend. So I gotta get that sign out of there. You see some of my plant supports leaning up against the bench. Those are some of those purple cone flowers I was talking about. Got a few bit of sedges in there. Looks like some volunteer shorts aster. And then here's another New England aster that we'll cut back over the weekend, the Memorial Day weekend. Some sedges, some more Canada anemone in there. We've got some blue lobelia that I'm going to be bringing you to shortly. There's some wild hyacinth there. And lots more Canada anemone. There's the blue lobelia. And then, as the summer goes on, various things will pop up there through the ditch garden. Not the best name for it, bioswale maybe. There's also some kind of aster that got in there that's not really native to my area that I have to battle a little bit. And some fox sedge that I'm trying to get under control and make it look a little neater since it's in the front yard. Lots more Canada anemone. That's a blazing star right there, which I really love. They're so beautiful. And a few of the baby oaks. Those oaks are self-seeding, so again, I'm going to try and
These might have been here too long to dig up and transplant, but I'll give it a shot. It's just where they're located, they're not going to do well if I let them grow into full mature oaks. Some more prairie smoke and columbine. And we're going to the garden in the middle of the yard. And right now we're at the stage where we've got the shooting stars, the Midland shooting star there. We've got some wild hyacinth in this garden. This is the mountain mint that will be blooming later in the summer. Some sedges, plains oval sedge, and then here I'm showing you that I love the diversity of my shooting stars. Sometimes the petals come out pink, like you see there, and sometimes they're bright, they're just plain white. And there's a close-up of the wild hyacinth. It's got a little bit of a lavender hue to it as it develops. This is what the Baptisia alba. We sometimes, as it first comes up out of the ground, it looks like asparagus. But I'll zoom in here in a second and show you the beginnings of the little white flower buds. You can just see them, just getting started. Not too long now, they'll be in full bloom. That's some showy goldenrod there. That won't bloom till later in the summer, August or September. There's that plains oval sedge right there. More mountain mint. And I've got a variety of spiderwort, some New England aster. That's the remains of the tulips. Some more prairie smoke over on this side. We got some bergamot in there. So a little bit of variety. And then the red bud in the front yard here, that's the trunks you're looking at. There are the leaves. They're pretty much almost fully leafed out. Nice, pretty heart-shaped leaves. And there's that lovely patch of prairie dropseed. As it continues to grow in and kind of not really flop over, but cascade over, it'll fill those spaces. But look, I'm showing you even with the rain we had earlier, we've just been so dry the last few years. There's that huge crack in the garden bed there. And this garden bed up front was one I started revamping last year, where I'm trying to create a matrix of prairie dropseed. As you see, the clumps of grass there. I do have to fill in a few more, and then in between the grasses I put things like, that's a silky aster, I believe, which is a delicate blue aster, the bergamot. I've got purple prairie clover. I've got the butterfly milkweed, which is the orange. That's a big clump of wild ginger from when I transplanted something from the backyard. There's another Baptisia alba. And all along that stone wall that you see in the background, everything in front of it is a clump of purple coneflower. And then the wild geraniums have sort of taken over the bed where the hydrangeas are. And in a previous video, we did trim back those hydrangeas. I think I may have gone a little too severe, or it's just a lack of rain and kind of cool temperatures we've been having, but they're really slow to bounce back, and they're not quite as tall as I would have hoped they would have been. So probably next year I won't trim them back as severely. They are starting to get flower clusters on them, little buds at this point. So we're getting close to flowers. Usually it's by 4th of July I get the big blooms on that bed. Alright, so we're going to make our way around to the north side of the house here in a second as we continue to look at this bed. I'm just going to keep weeding this one and tucking in grasses. I bought a few more at that native plant sale. It helps to cut down on weed pressure. So who do we have here? Oh, here's that. In a previous video we did pruning, like I said, and these cranberry viburnums were one of the ones that we pruned. And they're starting to bloom, which are just lovely. These lovely flat, almost like flat topped clusters of white flowers. This middle one's not blooming for some reason, but I did cut it back pretty severely. It is growing back quite nicely, and I'm going to show you. We got about 18 inches of growth so far. If I can tuck in there from where you see the sort of the grayish wood of last year's branch and the light green for this year is all new growth. So a good 18 inches just on that branch. And then we're going to zoom in here on some kind of insect. I couldn't quite tell if it was some kind of pollinator. It was a little cool and breezy this evening when I took the video. That's a whole clump of Solomon seal. And that's where I sort of, where I, kind of take extras from. There's some bluebells that are finishing up. Again, they tend to kind of flop over from the center. And then I dub these the world's most gigantic Jack in the Pulpit. Some nice ferns, and I do take ferns from here as well to put in other parts of the yard. And we've got a nice clump of wild geranium here. Some more Solomon seal. And ferns. Oh, that's a volunteer Joe Pye weed. And there's a clump of zigzag goldenrod that'll be really pretty in the fall. And here's a look at the trellis, or the arbor, I guess, with the wild clematis. And there's Earl hanging out, waiting for us at the gate, through the garden gate. And the rest of the garden in the back. I love this view, especially in late afternoon when the sun's coming through from the west. So again, apologies for the issues with the audio. Thanks for stopping by today and taking a little walk through the garden with me. Hopefully you can join me again another time. Look forward to seeing folks through the garden gate the next time we have a video out. Please hit like and subscribe, and we'll see you the next time. Enjoy your holiday weekend.